My ranch is home to something I take great pride in. A herd of heritage longhorn bulls that trace their bloodline back more than a century. These animals aren't just livestock, they're living history. I'm part of a conservation program that protects the breed, and some of my bulls are literally registered with the state as part of a heritage preservation effort. Most folks around here respect that. They know you don't mess with a man's herd, and you sure as hell don't mess with bulls that are both valuable and dangerous. But then came Karen. Her HOA development butted up against my north pasture. I'd already had problems with her crowd. Kids trespassing, teenagers trying to joyride on four-wheelers, people thinking they had the right to cut across my land because it's just pasture. I dealt with it the usual way. Fences, no trespassing signs, and, when necessary, polite but firm talks with the sheriff's office. But this time was different. One morning, I was checking fences when I noticed something strange near the north line. A pair of empty shell casings glinting in the dirt. I bent down, picked them up, and felt my stomach drop. They weren't mine. As I walked further into the pasture, I found a set of ATV tracks cutting straight through the grass. And then, the kicker. One of my bulls, a prize animal worth at least $25,000, had a fresh graze wound across his flank. Someone had been shooting at my bulls. I was furious. I immediately pulled the footage from the camera traps I'd installed along the fence line. And there it was, Karen, standing with two guys in camo gear, lifting the fence wire while they drove ATVs into my pasture. The video caught one of them lifting a rifle and aiming right at my herd. That was it. No more warnings. I called the sheriff, who brought out the county game warden. They reviewed the footage and agreed it was crystal clear. Karen had knowingly let hunters onto private property, without permission, and those hunters had fired at my protected bulls. That alone was a mess of charges. Trespassing, illegal hunting, destruction of property, yes, livestock counts, and reckless discharge of a firearm. But the best part? When I handed over the paperwork showing that my bulls were a state-protected heritage breed, the game warden's eyes lit up. He told me flat out, "This isn't just poaching. This is tampering with protected stock. That's felony territory." I could have stopped there, but I wanted Karen to feel the sting. So I called a meeting with her HOA board. They showed up looking smug, like they were ready to argue. Karen launched into a speech about how her guests were licensed hunters, and that my pasture looked like free hunting land. I didn't say a word. I just set my laptop on the table and pressed play on the footage. Karen waving her arms while her buddies crawled under my fence with rifles in hand. Then the sound of the shot. Then my bull bellowing in pain. You could have heard a pin drop. I leaned forward and said, "Those bulls are registered under state heritage protection. You didn't just trespass, you committed a felony. And now I've got it all on video." Karen turned pale. One board member actually stood up and walked out. The others tried to mumble excuses, but I was done listening. The sheriff filed charges against the hunters immediately. Both men were arrested and their rifles confiscated. As for Karen, she was slapped with conspiracy and criminal trespass charges. And because she'd funded the hunt using HOA money, I found out later she called it a community event. The HOA itself was on the hook for damages. It gets better. The state came in and filed a separate case. They hit Karen and the HOA with fines totaling over $75,000 for interfering with heritage livestock. As for my bulls, they're doing fine. The injured one healed up and is back to strutting around the pasture like he owns the place. Karen, on the other hand, lost her presidency, her credibility, and very nearly her freedom. Last I heard, she's buried in legal fees and HOA lawsuits, while her former neighbors whisper about how she nearly bankrupted them all over some bulls. Now, every time I look at my herd grazing peacefully under the sun, I smile. Karen thought she was hosting a friendly hunt. Instead, she walked straight into a felony.